I'm Drew Cogg, and I'm an alcoholic. I appreciate you asking me, Blake, to come down and speak. It's always a privilege to do anything for Alcoholics Anonymous. My sobriety date is March 20th, 2016. My home group is There's a Solution, just up the road in Holly Springs. We meet Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 o'clock, and we're currently meeting in the annex there. And I have a sponsor, and I have the privilege of working with other men in this program, and that's certainly what has led me to my God, the God that I understand today. So, yeah, what a blessing to, on my wedding day, get this little message. Essentially, I'll take it from God saying, hey, man, you're an alcoholic. The reason why you're here today actually getting married is because of this program, because guys like Blake helped me to continue to show up, and this program has continued to put men and women in my life to help me stay sober today. It's an absolute miracle. So I'm from Jacksonville, Florida, and my upbringing really was perfect. I don't have anything bad to say about it. My dad was a fighter pilot in the Air Force. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and they were perfect parents by all accounts. My mom took me to every sporting practice, every guitar lesson, anything that I could ever want to do, it was given to me. And so by all accounts, I shouldn't be an alcoholic, but I most certainly am. So something went wrong at some point there. But I hated alcoholics, honestly, from a very, very young age. My grandfather, my dad's dad, was an alcoholic, and I heard just these awful stories about how he treated my dad, how my dad would get calls in the middle of the night to go pick up his dad, my pop. That Pop had run his car into a lake yet again. That happened multiple times. That Pop had beaten my grandmother to a point where she was admitted to a hospital where she worked as a nurse, and they would put her back in the corner so that the other hospital employees didn't see her. And I just couldn't fathom why this man would treat his family so horribly, and I hated him for it. I hated alcohol. I knew a lot of things at a young age, and I knew for sure that I would not be an alcoholic. That would never ever happen to me. And I set out on a course, and for whatever reason, from a very young age, I felt different then. I heard when I first got here that, alcoholics are egomaniacs with an inferiority complex. And I was like, yep, that is me. I've been looking for that to grasp onto for the longest time. And when I walk in a room, I've got to be better than or less than everybody from a very young age. I had to compare myself. I couldn't just be one of many. And so what that looked like for me was basically stepping on the toes of every classmate in order to get ahead, because I did well in school, and I made it a point to do better than you were going to do, and I could do that. And I didn't care what it took to get there, because at the age of 10 or 11, I asked my dad what jobs make a lot of money. I had financial insecurity for no reason. I really had everything given to me. But I had some friends who couldn't go on the field trip or couldn't do this or that. And I was like, yep, I don't want to be in that situation. So, Dad, what do I do to make a lot of money? And he's like, I was sitting in the back of the car. He's like, you're 10, you're 11, you don't need to worry about that right now. And I pressed him on it, and he said, doctors, lawyers, engineers, I don't know. And I heard doctor, and I set out to be a doctor. Not because I wanted to help people, because I wanted to do the right thing, all these altruistic goals. I didn't have any of that. I just wanted to make money. And I wanted to make a lot of it because that was going to fix me. That was going to prevent me from ever becoming not unwell like those other kids in my class that couldn't do certain things. And I set out to do that. I stepped on the toes of everybody, and I crave that affection from teachers. That if I did well in class, the teacher would give me the attention, that pat on the back, and that's what kept me going. It's just interesting to look back on it now. I really wanted everybody to like me, really my superiors, and that's what I did. Sometime around high school, I began to have crippling social anxiety, where I hated speaking in front of classes. If I had to give a presentation in whatever class, I just remember my heart racing. I couldn't get my name out. I couldn't talk in front of people. And it was like a miracle. That happened, and then not 3 months later, I found my solution for all of that, and that was alcohol. And I still remember that first time. My buddy was pitching the next day, and we just got wasted. No, it was just a few dudes, some liquor, and everybody at the end of the night puking together in a bathtub. And I knew that I wanted to do that again. I still remember like the Parrot Bay rum we had there with the plastic handle vodka. That night was it. I finally felt okay, amongst my peers. And I went to school the next day. I couldn't. We all reeked of alcohol. I couldn't focus. I felt so sick. And I just remember thinking that entire day, let's do it again. Like that was it. I'm going to be okay now with that feeling. And for the most part, I could get away with doing that and still get my school stuff done. But I have to mention that up until that point, I was very involved in church and FCA, getting up on Thursday mornings and playing guitar for the early FCA thing. And then it was like a light switch. As soon as alcohol entered my life, all of that other stuff went away. It was a definite spiritual solution that I was seeking, and it completely supplanted all sorts of religious, spiritual endeavors that my family had kind of tried to set me on that path. I turned that off. It was like a light switch. I chased alcohol from that moment on. And I did well in high school. I got into University of Florida. It's a great place if you want to be an alcoholic. I got my bearings down there, and I remember I had just gotten to school, and I was there for about 3 weeks, and went out to some bar. I didn't have a wristband because I was not 21, and I was arrested, taken outside, thrown up against the cop car, and I was just pleading with this officer that, no, you don't understand, like, I have to go to med school one day. And he was like, what? Like, who are you? Like, this 18-year-old kid telling him that he's going to go to med school. And I got arrested, and I hid it from my parents. I gave them my dorm room address. That was it. Already at 18, if I want to do this one day, if I want to be a doctor, I can't keep on getting arrested like this. It's not going to go well. There's a lot of time from 18 to applying for med school, and one more of these, and I probably have ruined my chances. But I could rein in the drinking for the most part, and sit down, buckle down, study. I got into med school at University of Miami, another good place for alcoholics. You probably shouldn't be able to get a medical degree down in Miami, but they're still offering them down there. And I got involved in other things. I really liked, the stuff that does not pertain to this meeting, but I found what I could take to drink longer, drink harder, and if I'd stayed up all night long, like, I would do whatever to get to work in the morning to work. Like here I am, a med student showing up at the hospital to see patients, and I'm under the influence, and that's where it became kind of okay for me to show up to a hospital inebriated, because we had been out partying and we're in Miami, and all these excuses for my horrible behavior. But it was, for the most part, still pretty fun. I knew at some point that I had developed a real problem with drugs and alcohol, and so my solution to that was, well, if I join the military and I do like a military, the military will pay for my med school, I go to a military residency, they'll probably help me with this drug and alcohol thing. And so I signed up for the Army. The Army agreed to pay for my med school, and then I go to Washington, D.C. to do my training in ophthalmology. And the problem was that I was still me. I joined the Army, but Drew was still Drew. And I got up to D.C. For my dream job, learning how to be an ophthalmologist. And I quickly realized that I was miserable. And I'm in the company of these stellar, soon-to-be ophthalmologists. They come to work every day sober. They see their patients. They do the things that they need to do. And then they go home, maybe to their families, their wives, their husbands, and their kids. And I can't do that. I'm at work all day, and I'm thinking about that first drink when I get home. I'm not going home and doing the things that I should be doing, like studying, like maybe getting a good night's rest. I'm finding the people in the bad parts of town that I can party with, and that's what I did. And from early on in my time in D.C., I sought out those people, and I wound up in precarious situations. Every time that happened, I was like, I don't know how I got here, but here I am yet again. And the first time that looked like on a day off, which was a Tuesday or a Wednesday, I went up to Gettysburg, and there's a little ski resort up there, and I went skiing for the day. Oh, but I'm driving up to that ski resort, and just like that story of Fred, as he's about to walk into that hotel lobby and he sees that drink sitting on the bar, I see this ABC store as I'm about to pull into this ski resort, and I didn't think twice about it. I just whipped the car off the road. I got a plastic flask. I got some peppermint schnapps, because that's what my dad's friends used to drink on the slopes. So I wind up alone at this ski resort with peppermint schnapps and a plastic flask. And sure enough, by the day's end, I'm hammered. Cops are coming into a bathroom where I'm passed out on the floor. And even worse, I had destroyed the bathroom with kicking holes in the walls and ripping off the paper towel holder from the wall. And then apparently I tried to fight the cops when they picked me up. I came to, and I was handcuffed to the Gettysburg Police Department bench, and then they had to call my company commander at 2:30 in the morning to come pick me up. I was supposed to be at work the next day, and that's not good in the military if your company commander is driving like 2.5 hours with his buddy, because he's got to come get my car and bail me out of the police station. And I remember sitting in the front of that car, and he said, "Why are you here by yourself on your day off?" And I lied. I told him that I had friends that were here. They had just left a little bit earlier. And I still remember sitting there and thinking, why? Why is my life like this? I'm absolutely miserable. I can't be honest. I can't stop drinking. And I'm getting picked up. I've got my dream job right now. And my company commander has to come pick me up in the middle of the night and take me back home. And they're worried about how depressed I am. And I am depressed, but I always wanted to be able to keep that inside. I didn't want people to know how sad I looked. But that was my sad existence at the time. And so you do that, and the Army puts you in like a 6-week monitoring program. And I did those 6 weeks. I skated free. And I told myself, you know what, I'm not an alcoholic. Oh, they made me go to my first AA meeting in Rockville, Maryland. And the people were so nice there. And they're coming up to me, and everybody wanted my number. I was like, wow, this is really nice. These people are all about me. But they don't understand that I'm not that sick. Like, the people are telling some really awful stories, and I'm glad that they're all here, but this is certainly not for me. Like, I'm glad this exists, though. And so I escape free, and then things get worse. Things get a whole lot worse. I get to the point where I can't make it to work on time, and a lot of that's because I'm staying up all night doing all sorts of things, winding up in rough parts of town, and so my MO becomes wake up at 9:30. I was supposed to be at work at probably 6, and then come up with some crazy story about why I couldn't make it to work. So, and that was on repeat over and over. And so the first time was I live in D.C. I work in Bethesda, Maryland, but there are lots of ERs around the D.C. area. So I woke up late. I decided that I would act like I was hit by a car that morning. So I fell down or scraped my elbow on the sidewalk, and then show up at a different ER than where I work. And I told them I got hit by a car. You know, I need you guys to take care of me. And I remember the ER doctor was like, "Where were you hit? Like you're unscathed." And I told him, I got this scrape right here, and so after that, I went to the drugstore and picked up one of those braces, those arm braces, and I showed up to work with an arm brace on my arm, and did my best to get sympathy from everybody, and lied to everybody in the clinic, all the techs, my colleagues, all of my superiors. And that was just one day that was, if I could just get through this day, lie to everyone, and put that behind me, drink enough that night so that I didn't have to think about it a whole lot, I wouldn't do that the next day. And the problem was that just happened over and over. And I showed up to work just so tired. I remember patients would be telling me about their eye problems, that they're seeing this floater, and I hated hearing their stories. Like they're telling me that the floater starts over here and then it moves up here, and then it goes away if they shut their eye and if they shake their head. And I remember sitting there listening to these patients like, stop talking. Why are you talking right now? And I hated being there. I would fall asleep. I would fall asleep while talking to the patient. And one time I walked back into where all the residents hung out, and I was mid-sentence with one of my fellow residents, and I fell asleep. And I came right back to, and he said, "Did you just fall asleep?" I said, "No, what are you talking about?" And that was my life. And that was one small instance where oh gosh, I just fell asleep right in front of this dude, and I hope he doesn't say anything. And that was this just continued on, and the stories just got worse and worse and worse. I would show up to the OR, so I'm operating on people's eyeballs, doing cataract surgery. Yeah, no, it's not. It's stressful to do it sober, much less under the influence of all sorts of things. And I was, the mask was saving me from doing whatever with my nose and walking in there. My eyes are all big, and I'm trying to control my tremor in the operating room, which for us, we operate in like a 6 millimeter space, and with cataract surgery, and all the videos are on the walls, and I'm just doing everything I can, looking up there, sweating profusely, trying to just keep my hands from shaking, because any sort of movement under that microscope, is magnified, 50 times up on the wall, and it's not going well. People are starting to talk, and I just couldn't, I don't know how every time I really told myself, wow, that was bad, not again. But I remember thinking like these patients that trusted me with their eyesight, show up. I got their consent, and I cared about them. I really did. I cared about them a lot. But without a spiritual solution, without this program, I will choose myself every time. And it took me a while to understand that if I don't do this stuff, I will do it again. No matter having done it before. When people women who go through pregnancy and drink, I know non-alcoholics just can't understand that. It doesn't make sense, but I get it. I will always choose myself no matter what if I don't have a spiritual solution. And I can share that now because that's the program. I could not share the fact that I operated on people under the influence and did not have as good a surgical outcomes because of my alcoholism. But I know that today God will use that to certainly, maybe help somebody, and that's a gift to this program. So I'm in an ophthalmology clinic. I'm doing all sorts of things that are going to make my pupils really big at work. And so I get the idea that I can take a different type of drop that's going to make my pupils small. And then nobody will know that I'm doing all sorts of crazy stuff all night. So I get a different drop that's called pilocarpine. It makes your pupil really small. And I heard that it made your vision blurry, but it makes it really blurry. And so I put these drops in, my pupils become pinpoint, and then I can't see anything. So I'm walking around blind all day. And that's just another day. It's just another day that's going to get me by to the next day. And things get worse, worse. I finally... I about 2 weeks before I got sober, I had, same situation. Things were out of control. Couldn't get to work on time, and I decided I was going to stage an epileptic seizure. And so that for me looks like starting a fire in my little Georgetown, English basement, which all of those things are all packed in. These are I rented this dumpy little thing in the basement. It was real. I didn't take good care of it, but everything around there is very, very expensive, and they're all connected. So I built a little fire ring in my apartment and took a shirt and some shoes and lit it on fire in my apartment. And then I proceeded to call 911 and then pass out. And then I told them when they arrived, and I kind of got out of my stupor, that I must have had a seizure, and then somehow this fire started, in the middle of this fire ring that was poorly crafted. And then they took me to the ER at a different hospital, and at that point, things were the jig was almost up. I went down to Miami for a week with a bunch of friends from med school. And I'm down there, a lot of great folks, and they all party, but I'm probably 15 drinks ahead of everybody there, and I can't get the relief that I need. And I was miserable the entire week down there. These are close friends I hadn't seen in a while, and they're coming up to me and saying, what's wrong? What you're different. You're not happy. And I knew at that point that alcohol ceased working for me, and that was terrifying. I decided that I was going to not go to work on Monday, that I was going to kill myself because I couldn't live with alcohol. I couldn't stop drinking, and the best thing that I knew to do was to decide just to end my life. And so I got back to D.C. A day late. I was going to do it on the day after I got back from Miami, and I go to work. First of all, I'd missed work on Monday, and that's not good. That was just another day, and I show up on Tuesday. Thought that my boss didn't realize, and he told me to go down to the lab to check something. I came back, and there was an intervention waiting for me in the form of my boss, my program director in residency, my company commander, and the head of graduate medical education at my hospital. And they said, "What's wrong? Like, what is going on? You were AWOL yesterday. What's the deal?" And still in that moment, I couldn't come forward and say, "I'm an alcoholic. I have a real problem." I told them that I'm burnt out. I need to see somebody about my mental health. And they asked specifically about substances, and I said no. And they took me to the substance abuse wing in the hospital, despite me saying, "No, I don't have any problems." And when I got there, they said, "Oh, Drew, how's it going?" They knew me from that short stint that I had done like 3 years prior. And so my boss was like, "Wait, you already know these people?" And so I was already plugged in with the substance abuse folks, and they said, you were AWOL. You've been AWOL several times in the military. That's not good. They said that we could send you to federal prison at Fort Leavenworth, or you could go to rehab, one of the two. And in that decision, in that moment, no joke, was really hard. Like, I had to sit there and think, well, if I go to Fort Leavenworth, federal prison, how long will I be there, and how soon before I can get out and drink and do the things that I want to do? And it was really, really hard. And I remember thinking, okay, I guess I'll do this rehab thing, whatever. And I said I'd go to rehab. And that saved my life. From then on, God had thrown me a life raft. I so desperately needed it. I went to the Army, kind of full court presses you with a psychiatrist, psychologist, addiction therapist, all these people. And so when I talked to my dad that night and said, "Hey, I've got a real problem. I'm basically taking, the hospital has kicked me out of my program and said, hey, you need to get help. Put me on a medical leave of absence." And my dad said, you need to get to AA right now, because he had taken his dad to AA back in the 70s in Atlanta. And my grandfather spent the last 20 years of his life sober. I never really understood that, never really respected that. And I'm just grateful that my dad in that moment, it was not even, no hesitation, just said, you need to go to AA right now. Find a meeting, get there. I told my dad, whoa, the Army is going to give me plenty of resources. I'm going to do what they want me to do. I know AA worked for Pop, but I'm going to do whatever the Army tells me. And so I go back to our military hospital, and all of those voices are telling me to go to AA, right now. And so I sought out a meeting, and I found a meeting close to where I was living at the time. And I went to this church on Sunday night. I went there, scope it out, make sure it's okay. And I saw on the sign there that Abraham Lincoln had worshipped at this church back in the 40s, out of some long time ago. And I thought to myself, if Abraham Lincoln has been to this church, it's probably okay for me. And I really remember having that thought, because I was so full of myself, and that's still my problem today. So I went to that AA meeting where Abraham Lincoln had been to church, and I walked into those doors, and I don't remember anything that was really said that night, but I remember those people talking about alcohol the way that I had used alcohol, and they were laughing, and they were talking. They weren't miserable. I just expected to find miserable people because I was so miserable at the time. And these people were happy. And these people were happy to come up to me and share their phone number, their time. I went home, I purchased a big book, and I came back to that meeting that met every day in Georgetown, and they said, this guy came up to me after the meeting and said, hey, you're going to need a sponsor to go through that book. And I immediately kind of took a step back and said, I can probably do this myself. My grandfather has done this, and I'll be okay. And he's like, no, you need help with that book. And I was so grateful for that. That man who had a wife, who had a family, kids, would meet up with me on his Sunday afternoons, invite me into his house, and go through the book with me. It really did. It baffled me at that time that this man would take time away from his family to help me out. And every time I was leaving his place, every time we left each other, I would say, thank you so much for helping me. And he said, Drew, you're helping me. And I really didn't understand that at the time. I thought he was just, being nice. But it took me a long time to realize that that's how this thing works. That guy was just doing the thing that I have to do today to stay sober. And slowly things got better in my life. That sponsor urged me to get a home group, and I remember asking. He didn't tell me what a home group was. He's like, you just need to get a home group. Didn't say a whole lot. And I asked another friend, what is a home group? And that guy just said, hey, it's a place where you show up, you get a service position, and you try to help people out there. It was as simple as that. And there's this big meeting in D.C. where it's a young people's meeting. It's a Sunday night. I show up to this meeting, I ask for a service position, and they tell me that I need to keep people while they're smoking on the sidewalk instead of walking out into the street. And here I am, this young doctor full of himself. I said, I don't smoke. I didn't say, yes, thank you for the position. I just said, I don't smoke. And they said, no, it'll be perfect for you. So I started doing that. I started being the guy that just tried to usher people back on the sidewalk, and yet I didn't smoke. And it didn't make sense to me. That was the position that I needed to have to stay sober. There's got to be something better, some sort of title, and that's where I belonged, in a cloud of cigarette smoke, vape smoke, like just trying to help out, showing up on Sunday nights. And then at 6 months sober, I decided to switch home groups, and it was a bunch of older men that met on a Saturday morning with a lot of sobriety, and I asked for a service position in a speaker meeting, and they said, you can get the speaker for every meeting. And I just thought, there's no way. I haven't been sober a year. I don't have the qualifications to reach out to people and ask them to speak at this meeting. But God nudged my sponsor to nudge me to do that, and that kept me sober in D.C. for the first 2 years of my sobriety, and it saved my life, showing up with all these guys that had a lot of time and just being involved. I didn't understand it, but waking up early on a Saturday morning to show up to my home group was a big deal. Slowly things got better in my work life. I really didn't. I wanted to die. I really didn't. I didn't think I could hold down any job, and then thought I was just better off dead. And I took a month and a half, 2 months off. It really wasn't that long. And then I went before this large board at the hospital. And it was 40 senior doctors in the hospital that wanted me to tell them what I was doing differently, and if I wanted to shop back in that position to make my case. And I just showed up, scared out of my mind, but so grateful to have a sponsor to pray with before I walked into that meeting, and just said, hey, I'm now a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and this is what I'm doing. and really didn't think that they would give me another shot based on, just how much of a lowlife I was to show up and do the things that I did in that hospital. And they unanimously gave me the shot back at residency. And that's a miracle. The state board gave me a medical license with a lot of stipulations. I still check into meetings. I think that happens for probably 4 or 5 more years, and that's a resentment that I get. And my sponsor's like, dude, you are so lucky to have a medical license. Like, it's just shut up and do it. And that's exactly what I need to hear, because so I love self-pity. So I things just got better and better. I was back at doing work. Oh, they told me I needed to repeat that last year of residency. I didn't want to do that. Showed up to my home group, shared my woes, and some guy came up to me after that meeting and said, dude, if you were my doctor, like, I definitely want you to repeat that here. And that's what I needed to hear. I remember walking home with eating that little humble pie, and I'm grateful for that God just showed up and through lots of different people. And when I had finished the steps, and my sponsor said, you need to start raising your hand to sponsor other men, I didn't feel ready for that. I felt, full of fear. I was inadequate. There's no way that I can take another man through the steps. And I've been sober for, about a year. And I just showed up to people and asked people that I admired how they did it, and most people just said, it's right here. It's the same stuff that your sponsor did with you. It's nothing. There's no magic. There's a lot of magic, but there's no magic that I need to do. I just need to take another guy through these 12 steps, get down on my knees, pray, hold hands, do all those things that I thought were so weird at first, and then God does the rest. It's a truly miraculous thing, and it's a pleasure to do it today. At 2 years sober, I did not want to leave that area. My sponsor was there, my home group, my sober network, and so I graduated residency. That guy who held the intervention for me was the same guy that said, hey, gave me my diploma on the day of graduation. And I'm grateful for so many non-alcoholics that have stepped up to give me another shot when I didn't think that I deserved another shot. That's for sure. I really thought I was better off dead. And those folks said, hey, you're going to Fort Bragg, and get excited. And I was not excited about going to Fort Bragg, but that's where I wound up, summer of 2018. And my sponsor said, you needed to get a new sponsor. You need to work the steps again with a sponsor that's local. And I'm so grateful he said that, because I did not want to do that. I wanted just to lean on, the rest of my laurels of yesterday, that I was done and I could move forward. But I got down to Raleigh, and I showed up at There's a Solution in Holly Springs, and just raised my hand and said, hey, I need help. I need a sponsor. I'm new here. And the help was there. God shows up no matter where I am, no matter how dangerous the situation, how full of fear I am. God always shows up. And that man, he just was cool. He had real cool hair. And I didn't think he was sober that long, but it turns out he was. And I started meeting up with him to go through the steps. I actually, at the time when I first started working with him, we were like neighbors in the same apartment complex. He'd come down in pajamas and a cup of coffee, and we'd sit on my couch. And I just remember thinking, like, this is amazing. I was so scared to go to Raleigh, to go to Fort Bragg, and God's lined up this amazing sponsor who walks down in his pajamas on Sunday mornings, and we go through his steps again. And I got deeper. I shared a lot of stuff with him that I told myself I would never share. And And those are the things that I needed to do another 4-step. I needed to do another 5th step to go deeper, to share these things that I was just, I couldn't, I wouldn't let go of it when I was up in D.C., and it's probably saved my life now. And life has just gotten better and better. I'm an ophthalmologist at Fort Bragg. I have a medical license, which is crazy. I've got a year left in the Army, and the Army has just bent over backwards so many times to help me out. It was the Army was the reason I was so messed up. It was the Army that needed to fix me, and the truth is that I'm just a crazy alcoholic that needs a spiritual solution. And the Army nudged me that way, and the steps have basically cleared all that wreckage that I've accumulated in my past and connected me with God. That's all I needed. That was it. I needed to fix everything around me, but I just needed that connection with God, and nothing more. And today, God shows up by putting other men in my life to help out. About a year and a half ago, that same guy who held the intervention for me, he's kind of now the Army's ophthalmology kind of chess person. He puts the pieces where he sees fit. And he said, hey, you're ready to go to Iraq. And my immediate thought is there are no meetings there. My sponsor's here. Like, how am I going to stay sober in Iraq? And I was like, well, I just didn't. Lots of fear, basically, but came up inside me. And we just took it a day at a time. Skype, that was before, Zoom became a thing, but there's Skype. And I stayed in touch with my sponsor. I did meetings on Skype with people in Saudi Arabia, Yemen, all kinds of places, and it was all audio, and that was the way. It was just really cool. God showed up there. I was there when that general was taken out in the middle of the night, and when I was at Baghdad, I was at the Baghdad airport, and when that happened, we thought we got a lot of mortar fire. We just thought we were under attack yet again, and then we realized that, oh wow, this is the kind of the supreme dude in the Iranian military. We have nothing to protect ourselves, and I really thought we were going to die. Like I really thought, we all thought that Iran has a formidable military. They're going to just wipe us out because we're very, very close there. And I called my family. I'm like, love y'all, but I didn't say we're not going to make it. But my dramatic self, I'm full of fear. I run there and I talk to my sponsor. He's like, dude, you're all right. Pray. That's his answer for most things today. It's just pray. And that's my answer for everything today. Pray. Try to find a newcomer. Show it to my home group, and just say yes when Alcoholics Anonymous asked me to do something. And like I said, just got married a couple weeks ago. I thought I'd never be able to do that. And I prayed. I got to a meeting that morning in Atlanta, and people just showed up there. Blake texted me that day and said, "Hey man, will you speak?" And I'm sober today, and that's a real miracle. It's a real gift from God to be a sober man, to have a purpose, carry this message. It's unbelievable, but it's real. And if you're new, I just encourage you to ask somebody with some time to take you through the steps, and it just sets off an amazing journey. So thanks.